Totally Football Show, European edition. Today, Champions League. Who'll be at home as Europe's top competition gets underway? Me for a start, but other big European names. We'll also be looking at 3 sizzling Serie A Premier League matchups. We'll be talking Harry Kane, who kills Keil, and more Brits abroad with Conor Gallagher opening his Atleti account, and the Chris Smalling appalling debut. There's all of that and much, much more in this Totally Football Show. Monday the 16th of September for us, listener, but clever you're already on Tuesday the 17th of said month, or maybe beyond for you, listener, which means the Champions League's getting underway this evening for you.
Woof. The new Champions League, James.
The
super expanded Champions League.
The Swiss model.
The Champions League Extra.
Are you going to be watching? Are you going to be watching?
Julien Laurence.
Hello, Jimbo.
So nice to see you.
You too.
James Horncastle here as well.
Hi, James.
Also on the big screen, Pol Ballús.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very well, Paul. Lovely to see you too. Big week for Barca.
Big week, yeah. Happy days in Barcelona.
Yeah, wow, what a run they're on.
Yeah.
And they've got Champions League action. Of course, so many big clubs have. James, you're about to dash off around Europe. How many games are you going to?
Well, now I'm only going to 1. I was supposed to be going to 3. But I've got chronic back pain.
Damn.
And so
that's not funny.
I will be returning from Milan on Wednesday.
Okay.
If I can actually move.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Crikey, that's put everything into perspective football-wise.
A cold San Siro with some of the most inaccessible press seats.
Yeah.
I think
uncomfortable seats as well.
Yeah, I think I will be, sort of still there this time next week.
All right. Paul, you're going to be going to Barcelona-Monaco, I think. Is that right? Or Monaco-Barcelona? No?
I'm not going to go. My colleague is going to go. But yeah, I'm going to be following this.
Big
game.
Paul, sorry, is that because it's in Monaco, or is it the kind of classic Montjuic?
You have debts at the casino.
I have nothing against France or the French food or anything. It's just that we have just like split the games basically, and I'm going to Belgrade.
Oh,
which is going to be a fun place.
Maracana.
And I'm going to Lisbon as well. So Laia, my colleague Laia Cervallo, is going to Dortmund.
Right.
Because I don't want to use the word sick of Germany after the Euros, but I think I've seen a lot of Germany.
Yeah, fair enough.
You'll be seeing the Partizan Belgrade game. That's going to be huge. All right. We'll get on to the Champions League fixtures. The key ones, because there's loads of them, 18 in fact, split across Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. But before we go any further, I think we're long overdue for a moment of the weekend, or in fact call it a moment of the last fortnight, because we weren't here. You were, James, but not everybody got that call up.
Italy beating France then.
Italy beating France. Jules, why don't you start us off? What's your moment of the extended time period?
My moment of the weekend was Friday night, so I know it goes back a little, but Lille unexpectedly lost away at Saint-Etienne, which can happen, 1-0, first win for Saint-Etienne, at the Geoffroy Guichard, one of your favorite stadiums, Jimbo. And it's what happened after, because Olivier Létang, who is the president at Lille, the CEO if you want, came out very, very strongly saying how disgraceful his players were, how ashamed he was. When actually, if you watched, maybe we didn't watch the same game, because Lille lost, okay, and they shouldn't have lost, but they created loads of chances. On another night, they would have won that game pretty easily. Jonathan David didn't play because he came back late from Canada after the international break. So they had a few players that they could not really use as much as they would have wanted. But I felt it was not that bad of a performance. Certainly the result, is bad. It was very surprising. Some of the players were very surprised. Pep Genesio himself kind of distanced himself from what Létang had to say. So I thought it was just bringing more tension and more like chaos to a period where Lille just needed a bit of calm after the defeat to prepare for the Champions League when they play Sporting Club de Portugal.
Sporting Club. L'attente non incordial.
Incordial, exactly.
Right.
James.
Well, that's a great one, isn't it?
Yeah.
James Horncastle, moment of recent times.
Well, I mean, there's some wild stories in Serie A. I know I say that every week. But
you do.
But there was one which was Lele Adani, who is the former Inter Fiorentina centre-back who's become like the Gary Neville of Italian football punditry. He was telling an anecdote about when they won the Coppa Italia in 2004 at Fiorentina. And they went out for dinner, all celebrating. The cup was in the middle of the dinner table. and he took it home. And he went home with a girl. So this was quite shocking, and not the most shocking news of the week either, because Paulo Dybala's wife, Oriana Sabatini, part of tennis royalty and pop star royalty in Argentina, she has a passion for embalming. And one day,
What's embalming?
I'll get to this.
Okay.
One day.
I mean, I've
you
not
probably
come
need
across
to
that
know.
word.
Yeah, no, but the location will tell everything to Jules.
Okay.
The guy at the local morgue in Rome calls up Oriana and says, "A new body's in. Do you want to come and watch?
Embalm it.
Come and embalm it."
It's when you essentially prepare the body and you inject things which preserve it for long enough that you can kind of.
And so
That's the thing.
And so
give it a proper send-off.
She said to Paulo Dybala, "Paulo, do you want to come with me?" And so this whole story about them going to a morgue,
Right.
to embalm a body and also do the body's makeup ahead of maybe a funeral, I imagine. It's been an interesting week. To say the least. There's even wilder stuff as well. Like
I don't believe there's anything
well,
wilder than
just one normal week of calcio.
Yeah, then one Lelo, one cup, and and Dybala at the morgue. Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Paul,
Beat that.
give us something a little bit sunnier, please.
Yeah, no, I took more of a conservative approach to my week, if I'm honest.
Okay.
And I decided, basically, I had a bit of a time off in the international break, and I decided to go back to my hometown. And I catch up, basically, and that's the moment I wanted to highlight, with my hometown club, the team that I started covering when I was 17, which is Manlleu. They play in the 6th tier, I think, of Spanish football. And they are about to start the league next season. So basically, a lot of players who play in there are my mate from school and everything. And I just catch up with them, and they were just explaining me. I'm from an area like in Catalonia, in the north of Spain, like in the inside of Catalonia, where we are famous for the dry cured meat that we have. We have really good good jamón, good longaniza, fuet, like sort of local meat, basically. And I remember having this chat with one of the club executives, explaining me how they have extended a player by promising a good outcome of meat throughout all the season.
Right.
So it's not salary, it's not everything. It's just like a good fuet, a good butifarra, good meat for him.
You've gone with preserved meat in your moment of the week as well, no? What are the odds that two of our things... Massively self-indulgent story, that, Paul. I really respect you for that.
Well, so these jamons are expensive, no?
Yeah.
So
it's not really jamón. It's I don't know how to explain that in English. It's butifarras and fuet. It's really Catalan. But they are really good. Really high quality meat. And basically, it was this player who basically accepted to extend his contract just for the club to provide his family with meat.
Excellent. Paul, thank you for that. Champions League match day 1. Our thoughts next. Listener, run me a bubble bath. As I explained to you briefly, what's happening with the new Champions League Extra. That old 32-team group stage, that's gone. Forget about that.
Yeah,
now got 36 teams. Each side is going to play 8 games. And after that, the 24 teams with the most points from the whole league structure will advance. The top 8 go straight into the knockouts. Woohoo! The next 16? Yeah, from 9 to 24. They will face 2-legged playoffs with the 8 winners also going into knockouts. Boom. No one drops into another competition. Get your head around that. So this week, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18 games to look forward to. Amongst them, 2 Champions League final rematches. Woof. What game are you most looking forward to, Paul, and why?
I'm going to say the Paris Saint-Germain Girona, because that's a huge day for Girona history. It's a day that they have been dreaming for the whole summer. Basically, a big part of the city is just traveling to Paris just to witness that. Coverage in local media, it's being mad. It's changed a lot of lives in the small sports city that Girona is. And yeah, everyone is looking forward to this. I know that the club are, and I'm excited to see how they do. Although, like on the weekend, they didn't have the best of the previews after that Barcelona game that they lost in a bad way. But yeah, I'm quite excited to see how they cope with European football.
Very nice. Are you actually going to get along to that one? Because that's down the road from you.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go because I think that we're gonna have someone in Paris covering that. But I'm not gonna go. Hopefully, I'm gonna be in Girona for some games in Girona because I just want to see how they live that basically.
Yeah,
the stadium has had to go through renovations and everything, and how the city adjusts to that.
Magnificent. And maybe have some buttifaro while you're there, eh?
Maybe. Why not? That's a really good spelling, by the way.
Yeah, it's from James's time in Andalusia.
He's fluent in Spanish, you know?
Yeah.
He's fluent in Spanish.
Studied
I can see that, I
in
can see
Catalonia as well, actually.
El Jimbo.
El Jimbo.
Yeah, anyway, so good. Jules, when you're ready, a Champions League game that you're most looking forward to this week?
So I wanted to go for Monaco Barcelona, but I would change that because I think, like you said, the Milan Liverpool and the City Inter are really the two outstanding ones for this match day one, really. So whatever one you want me to, I'll pick the City Inter just because Inter are in much better form than Milan, for example, and City are flying already, pretty much as we've said. So this should be great. I just can't wait to see if Inter can go to the Etihad and play their usual game. We saw Simone Inzaghi rotating quite a lot at the weekend, which meant that the performance where Monza was not the greatest, and Dumfries' late equaliser meant that they just got a point, but the big boys are going to come back, and that's a hell of a game, really.
They couldn't beat Monza. Can they beat Mon City, James?
Well, I mean, they played very well in the final, didn't they, 18 months ago? Or 18 months ago, a year ago in Istanbul. And a lot of people thought that was going to be the most one-sided Champions League final in recent memory. It wasn't. And I think it was the aura that Inter came back to Italy from Turkey with that has seen them go to another level, really. Certainly last year when they won the league with 5 games to spare, 19 points as well. I think the players, from seeing how well they competed against Man City, were like, okay, if we just play at that level and do these things all the time, then no one can live with us in Serie A. And that's been true. But as Jules says, in terms of that draw with Monza at the weekend, that was entirely down to them basically saying, Barella, you've just had a nose-op. You can rest this out. Çalhanoğlu, we need you for Tuesday or Wednesday. Can't remember which day.
Wednesday.
There's just so much football these days. Backline was completely different, I think. Bastoni didn't play.
Dumfries didn't start either.
Dumfries didn't start. De Vrij played instead of Acerbi. So, I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think Pep will have learnt more about Inter from that experience in Istanbul. And whilst there's lots of kind of unpredictable variations that are part of the way Inzaghi's team plays, do a lot of improv, and it's hard to predict. I think Pep will be better prepared for them than he was obviously like a year ago.
Right. You'd probably feel that from the Nerazzurri's point of view, Marcus Thuram is an upgrade from Lukaku. From that final.
Well, not on the basis of Lukaku's weekend.
From that final. Yeah, but we'll touch on what Lukaku's getting up to now a little bit later on, well, very shortly probably. I mean, other big games, Jules, you mentioned Milan against Liverpool, rematch the 2005 and 2007 finals, and the fact that Milan's form hasn't been as good. But on what was the last chance from their fans, they finally came good with this weekend, finally getting their first win under Paulo Fonseca.
Yeah, against newly promoted Venezia, who changed coach. Paolo Bonoli went to Torino and has done really well with them. They lost their American international Tanner Tessman as well, who went to Lyon.
Yeah.
And they're coached by Eusebio Di Francesco, who got Roma to a Champions League semi-final once upon a time, and got Sassuolo into Europe, but then seems to get relegated all the time. It's quite harsh because he did well at Frosinone last year. But you referenced the last chance for Milan. So the team bus was going to San Siro, and on either side of the street, there's sort of 2 or 3 rows of ultras. They unfurled this big banner which says "Basta scuse, l'ultima chiamata," which is like no more excuses. It's your last chance, your last call. And they scored within 90 seconds, and then they were 4-0 up after 29 minutes.
There you go.
And I think some of the goals were quite fortunate. 2 were penalties, 1 came from a corner kick. But it was exactly what Milan needed ahead of this game against Liverpool, which precedes the Derby della Madonnina against Inter at the weekend as well.
Huge. Do you give them any chance against Liverpool? Their results against English sides of late. I mean, against Newcastle last year in the Champions League.
Yeah, there's been a change of coach in the meantime. Pioli, I think, did quite a good job at making Milan defensively solid in Europe, at least when they went all the way to the Champions League semi-final. And you can't say that this Milan team is defensively solid under Paulo Fonseca, or what he inherited towards the end of last season. Emerson Royale, for example, has been culpable for a number of goals. So Emerson Royale on the right will be playing against Luis Diaz, and I'm quite interested to see what happens on the other side with Theo and Leao, who ever since they kind of showed dissent to Paulo Fonseca, which is one of the reasons why there's been so much scrutiny around him during the Lazio game. Those two players have been in great form in the last two games. So, it was a very good game a few years ago at Anfield when Maignan, I think, saved a penalty and broke his wrist, saving a Mo Salah penalty. Brahim Diaz was playing for Milan that day. I think they came back from going behind and went 2-1 up, and then Liverpool came back and won. But then later in that group stage, Liverpool sent a reserve team to San Siro and they beat Milan. So it's quite hard to call, but there'll be a lot of pressure on, even though there's more relief after this win, if they lose this game and they're going to then play against Inter, and Inter have beaten them a record 6 times in a row. It's a heavy week for Paulo Fonseca.
Indeed so. There's another Anglo-Italian clash on Thursday as Atalanta take on Arsenal. Also on Thursday, Monaco against Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid against RB Leipzig. Paul, how do you see that one?
Let's see. It's going to be an interesting one, but I think that Atletico de Madrid have found better sensations over the last couple of games. Conor Gallagher scored his first goal last night, and I think that the balance after his 2 starts for the team is really positive. He was quite praised last night by Spanish media. Julien Alvarez, who has been on the bench for the last game, also scored. So I think that pieces are coming together. Simeone is getting better and better feelings. And it's something that was needed because the amount of signings that they made, there were a lot of different pieces to assemble, basically. And this is what seems that they are starting to do. Champions League is another level. I think that it's a subject that Simeone needs to prove something. I know that when he arrived at Atletico Madrid, he had an instant impact. He managed to get to Champions League finals. But over the last few years, I think that they had the squad to perform better in European stages. And I think that, this Champions League is the perfect chance for them.
Against an RB Leipzig side that drew 0-0 with Union Berlin at the weekend. Conor Gallagher on the score sheet. Not the only important Gallagher news from your point of view, Paul, because I understand you actually secured tickets to Oasis in Manchester.
Exactly.
Good for you, Paul. Antoine Griezmann, also on the score sheet this weekend in that victory over...
Such a Griezmann goal, isn't it? Because he's always in movement and in motion that he just reacted more quickly. That's it. Quicker than anybody else, and then for the finish, it's such a Griezmann goal. It's funny.
Griezmann lightning.
One step ahead of everyone. Yeah.
That's so true. Well, loads of other games taking place. Any others you want to mention before we get on to some league action? I'll call it league action.
The Atalanta-Arsenal game, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Let's go back on that then. Atalanta with a win. Their first of the season this weekend. Was it their first?
I think no, they won the first game 4-0 against Lecce.
Oh, well, that's a win, isn't it? That's so true. Well, let's get back on that then. James, Atalanta knocked Liverpool out of the Europa League last year.
Yeah, and did so convincingly, particularly with that performance against...
Only team in Europe, in anywhere, to beat Bayer Leverkusen, come to think of it.
Yeah, and Lookman, who scored a hat-trick on that night in Dublin and is on the Ballon d'Or shortlist, was excellent at the weekend. He was staging a bit of a holdout towards the end of the transfer window because he wanted to leave. So he was following what Teon Koopmeiners did ahead of his move to Juventus by basically saying, look, I'm not going to train. And so he came back, and a wonderful assist for Retegui, the Italy international, who's great in the air, scored 4 goals in 4 games for Atalanta, and then scored a wonderful goal himself. So I think given the style of play that Atalanta have, it'll be a physical, aggressive game. It'll be the first Champions League game that they play in their completed refurbishment of the stadium, which was kind of opened for the first time at the weekend for this 3-2 win against Fiorentina. And so I think the atmosphere there will be lively. And, even though they've lost players to injury, big injuries like Scamac and Scalvini, they've got they're an awkward opponent to face for anyone. I mean, if it's your first time playing Atalanta, it takes some time to figure them out. So I think this will be a really competitive game.
All right. Arsenal, of course, themselves coming off a very good result at the weekend in the North London derby.
There's also a very interesting Juventus-PSV Eindhoven.
That's true.
PSV 5 wins in 5 in their
to another flyer,
Peter Bosch when Juventus 2-0 draws in a row. And also Kylian Mbappe and Real Madrid. He will make his debut in the Champions League for Real Madrid against Stuttgart.
Stuttgart, that's a big game. We're going to be asking Seb Stafford Bloor about that and Pol Ballús. In fact, when we get onto La Liga, in fact, why don't we do that next? La Liga, Pol Ballús. I put it to you that the big three all won. Atletico Madrid, as you mentioned, 3-0 winners over Valencia, who are now actually bottom of La Liga. Real Madrid, 2-0 winners against Real Sociedad. And Barcelona, who you were bigging up last time out, with a 4-1 victory at Verona. Real Sociedad, Real Madrid. Looking at that one, you got the home side hitting the woodwork 3 times, and Real Madrid needing a couple of second-half penalties to take the 3 points. Makes it sound like maybe Carlo Ancelotti's mob weren't the dominant side. Was that the case?
Yeah, that was the case. I think that Real Madrid were really lucky to get the win there. I think that they found the first penalty, which was a clear penalty, in my opinion, when Real Sociedad was playing the better. They were just lucky, but you cannot sort of miss these sort of chances against Real Madrid. And when you do that, any team in La Liga knows that they are doomed to lose, basically. Then they had this penalty, and the second penalty has caused a bit more of the sort of controversial scenario that you can imagine in Spain, with all the media blaming the referees and all the noise around that situation. And I think that there's like a lot to talk about Real Madrid and Vinicius again, because the atmosphere around Vinicius is heated. He was involved in that situation of the second penalty, which in the football that we probably grew up with, that's never a penalty. But if you look at the latest update of the rule book, everyone and all the referees say that it's a penalty. So that's it, you've got to take it. But the fact that Vinicius was in the middle of it, and like the reaction that it provoked to the fans, when he scored his first goal, he basically silenced all the crowd in San Sebastian, and it created more tension. And even like local media and like Real Madrid fans, or like people who you would think that they are close to the club, they are like sort of not blaming Vinicius, but saying that he's a provocative character, which in my head is mental. I think that Carlo Ancelotti spoke about that just now before the game against Stuttgart, and said that he cannot understand it, like the atmosphere that Vinicius is just living in, that he can bear with some booze before a game, but it's all the time in every game, in every situation. So there's a lot of controversy around this, given as well, besides all the struggles that Real Madrid are having game-wise, because they are not playing well. They are in the middle of an injury crisis. They are going to recover Tchouaméni and Bellingham soon, hopefully for them. But Militao has not trained before this Stuttgart game. In midfield, there's barely anyone in there standing. Brahim Diaz was injured on the weekend and will miss the next 3 months.
Wow.
So it's going to be it's not going to be easy for Real Madrid, who are, in my opinion, they are still like trying to find themselves with this new team and this new scheme that they have.
Okay. Opportunity perhaps for Stuttgart, who got a victory at the weekend, 3-1 away to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Atletico Madrid will be taking on RB Leipzig, another Hispano-German clash. We talked a little bit about that already. So why don't you tell us about Girona. Sorry. So why don't you tell us about Girona, Barcelona, and what you think Monaco's prospects will be against the Catalans, who've made it 5 wins out of 5 under Hansi Flick, with Lamine Yamal again on fire, as they say.
Yeah. I think that Barcelona is the best team in La Liga right now. I'm not going to say that they are the favorites, because that's too much of a statement, given that the competition doesn't finish next week. And it's going to be like a long run. But they are playing really, really good. I think I said on the last podcast that the momentum that Barcelona fans are living has a lot to do with the low expectations that they had ahead of the season. And that's possibly one of the keys in life as well. If you want to be happy, just lower your expectations, then you're not going to be disappointed. But now I really think that they have reasons to be excited, because the Girona game was a sort of a test. They're going to Girona, a stadium which is really tough to win, because this Girona team has created a bond with the fans, and it's tough to win there, and they played really, really good. It was outstanding to see the high pressing. The difference with the team that Xavi was managing last season is even painful to watch, because they are the same group of players with the only change of Olmo instead of Gundogan. All the patterns, like in the build-up and everything, tactically, they are like one step ahead. And in terms of physicality and intensity, they are as well. Barcelona fans have reasons to be excited. They are excited. And I think that the best for them is just to keep this low profile, know that Real Madrid are the favorites to win it, and just keep it that way, because it has favored Barcelona so far. And they are playing. I'm not brave enough to say that they're playing the best football in Europe, because there's like a lot of teams in there, but they have to be up there. They have to be like in contention as one of the most informed teams in Europe. And I'm sure that they are the favorites against Monaco, which they have a score to settle against Monaco, because if you remember, they played a friendly game before the start of La Liga where Monaco outplayed Barcelona. They won 3-0 in Barcelona. In Montjuic, it was a game that all the people inside the club say that the players were extremely tired after the preseason and like a huge load of training sessions, so they couldn't perform. But yeah, that's something that I'm sure that fans and players will keep in mind ahead of this Champions League opener for Barcelona.
Interesting. Jules, Monaco had a 3-0 victory this weekend as well. How do you see them coming into this game?
They're really good so far this season. They're unbeaten, 3 wins, 1 draw. They've only conceded 1 goal. They're the best defense in Ligue 1. They're very, very solid, very, very physical team. And on top of all the very physical players they've got, like Mbolo or Zakaria and those kind of players, all the defense, they have flair player from Golovin to Akliush to Minamino to those kind of guys. So I think it's going to be great. It's obviously in the Principality, so you can just imagine the atmosphere will be so hostile and so hot and heated. So it'd be difficult for Barcelona to travel there, to be fair. But I think it should be really good, really, really good.
But you meant that last bit. The last bit you meant.
It would be good, not the atmosphere. But if for once the stadium will be full, there will be a lot of neutrals, a lot of Barcelona fans, a few Monaco fans as well. But yeah, it should be really good.
Magnificent. Looking forward to that game.
And the pitch was bad, but the pitch has been changed.
They relayed the pitch.
So it should be good.
Good. Paul, Ollie McBurney update, please.
Ollie McBurney, he had, I think, the worst game of the season. He didn't do anything. I think that as he's losing the redness in his skin, he's losing superpowers. That might be the case. I would recommend him just to go to the beach, don't use any sunscreen or anything, and just, pray for the best.
Right. What do you... Vanille Fraise, that's the French nickname, no, for sunburnt Brits, isn't it? Vanille Fraise?
Okay. Vanille Fraise?
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Have you not heard of that?
No.
Down on the south coast, very much the thing, because, that's the... If you think of the strawberry vanilla ice cream, that's very much the, pink and white.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's an equivalent.
It might catch up,
equivalent in Las Palmas. There you go. Excellent. Anything else we should know, Paul, from the Liga?
No, I think that's like pretty much it. If you want to have fun, I would suggest you to watch Celta de Vigo games, which in my opinion are sort of like the revelation of the season. A team full of academy players, an academy manager. They scored 13 goals in 5 games and conceded 10. So games are entertaining. And apart from that, enjoy Barcelona. Let's see what Real Madrid can do in the coming weeks to fix that up.
Who's in charge of Celta Vigo now?
You're killing me. I know that he's the manager of the B team last season. I don't remember the exact
It was
name now.
Rafa's gaff, no? And then
Yeah, but
they
it's not
binned
Rafa
him.
anymore. The name is Claudio Giraldez.
Okay, I'll ask you again. Following the departure of Rafa Benitez, who's in charge of Celta Vigo now?
Yeah, so the manager is Claudio Giraldez, who was the former manager of the B team. A lot of the players that he used to have now are playing with the first team. And yeah, it's a really exciting team to watch, full of youngsters, as I was saying. And yeah, really end-to-end games.
Excellent. Just checking who they're going to be playing next weekend. And the answer
It's going to be a 0-0 draw.
going to be oh, they're an athletic club.
There you go.
Be fun. Very good. Paul, thank you so much for being with us today. We salute you and look forward to hearing how that goes in next Tuesday's show.
It's been a pleasure. I'm going to bring you one bootifarra at some point.
Okay.
Season.
Amazing.
Maybe
Just one.
bring 3.
I'm going to bring 3. I'm going to bring 3.
Good. Pol Ballús, everybody. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Have a good one.
Next up in our wide-ranging review of the weekend in Europe, we're going to head back to Italy, James, because frankly, don't know how long your back is going to hold out for. So we've touched on some of the big stories, but one that we haven't yet addressed is the new table toppers, a little team called Napoli. Woo!
Yeah.
What a way to bounce back with Antonio Conte.
Yeah, they no longer melt like snow in the sunshine. This is one resilient snowman. Yeah, they've won 3 games in a row for the first time since their title-winning season. They haven't always been convincing in some of these wins, even sort of blowout wins like the one at the weekend. They won 4-0 in Sardinia against Cagliari. They took the lead early on. Giovanni Di Lorenzo deflected shot off Yerry Mina. To be honest, there was a 7-minute interruption where flares were thrown onto the pitch, and Conte felt that really disrupted the team's rhythm. And Cagliari came back into it. They hit the bar. Alex Meret made a couple of really big saves. And then Lukaku played through Kvaratskhelia. And from the 2-0 onwards, they were in complete control. They brought on the McTominator and Billy Gilmore. So you got to see a little bit of them in the final half hour. And as I said, not entirely convincing in the kind of middle of the section in this game, in the same way, for example, against Parma before the international break. They went behind in that game. And then it was only when Zion Suzuki, the goalkeeper, got sent off that Napoli basically threw on all their forward players, equalised in stoppage time and won the game in stoppage time. So the results are a little bit misleading. But in terms of what we know from Conte being a serial winner who makes you be perfect in order to beat him, these are already the kind of at least standards he's setting in terms of results.
Lukaku putting through Kvara for Kvaratskhelia goal, and then the pair reversing that, Kvara setting up Lukaku for his goal. He's really looking like a shrewd signing for Napoli, Lukaku.
Yeah, who would have known?
He always starts well, though, doesn't he? He always starts
well,
really
usually scores on his debut. That's what happened against Parma. Conte's saying, he needs to kind of physically still get up to speed, but he's a leader. They've kind of welcomed him with open arms. Conte obviously is the Lukaku whisperer, really gets the best out of him. But David Neres, who they signed from Benfica, and they spent a lot of money on him, as they did on Lukaku, as they did on McTominay. Neres has assisted goals in each of his appearances so far this season, and often he's come on as substitute. So he's been a real impact signing, Neres, so it's all pretty positive, even though they have spent a shed load of money on guys.
That was a shed, listener.
Yes, a shed on players who are in their prime, who they've given big long
Lukaku
contracts to. Yeah, and obviously they didn't manage to really sell any players because Victor Osimhen ended up going on loan to Galatasaray. He scored on his debut, but at the moment things are looking up for Napoli, who play Juventus next week.
Yeah, the Conte derby.
Massive. And, of course, they're not in Europe, so they can just focus all week on that game. And we'll see what they do.
They're top of the table, although, by the time you hear this, listener, it might be another team, because Udinese are playing Parma Monday evening, and if they win that, they'll go top of the pile. Kind of weird-looking Serie A table. at the moment, at the very much the other end of it, are Cagliari, whose fans, after throwing flares during the game, expressed their displeasure at the end as well. Scenes as they called the players over, and crucially, the Cagliari kind of flamingo mascot stood there with its head bowed and having a bit of a dressing down.
Yeah, Davide Nicola, who there was a great tweet maybe a week or so ago, because you've seen Daniel Craig with his new kind of long-haired look for this Luca Guadagnino picture. And it's just like there was a picture of him saying Daniel Craig starring as Davide Nicola in a new biopic of his life. And they look more or less the same.
Very much so.
But yeah, Nicola, who is this, sort of Harry Houdini figure of Italian football, at least when he comes in. But when he starts seasons with teams, it's a different story. And so far, Cagliari winless. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens with them. But yeah, it's a weird Serie A table. You mentioned Udinese, Florian Thauvin.
Yeah, on fire.
Thauvin on fire. I haven't seen Alexis Sanchez yet, so the idea of these two combining.
Wow.
But Thauvin, in the game before the international break, he had this run from the halfway line, scored, insane outside the boot assist. Thauvin, it's back.
He's back, 31 years old. World Cup winner, Thauvin, don't forget.
Yeah.
Torino are there, only 1 point off the top of the table. You've got Verona, who've yet to play this weekend. They could go level with Napoli. They're away at Lazio, all sorts of things. Juve in that mix as well. We haven't really touched on them. Gone a little bit off the ball in the last couple of matches.
Yeah, after winning their first couple of games 3-0 against Como and Verona, they then played Roma in the final game before the international break. That was a 0-0. We spoke about that at the time, how it was quite an uninspiring, very stodgy game. And they played against Empoli on Saturday night. There was an expectation that they'd win that game, but they drew 0-0. Empoli have started the season well, to be fair. They'd beaten Roma. Jazzy, their winger come striker, had scored a few goals as well. But Juventus, I think they're still not really clicking in the forward areas. I mean, if you look at the goals that they scored against Como, they're kind of two worldies. This was the first time that the likes of Nico Gonzalez started, Teun Koopmeiners started, and I think Nico had been away with Argentina over the international break. So it was the first time where you got a real kind of look of their signings rather than youth players that they were playing in forward positions. And you can see that the chemistry just isn't really there yet. They lack a bit of understanding. But they're yet to concede in 4 games, James, as well, which I think hasn't happened for 10 years.
I think he's the only team in the Big 5 leagues still to have not conceded a goal.
Is that right?
Yeah. Everybody else
right?
had at least 1 goal conceded. But
Okay, well, that defence will be tested by freewheeling PSV, although PSV away from home in Europe, not so hot. I think 1 win in 17 on the road.
That's true.
There you go. Anything else from Serie A, James?
Well, Roma's still winless.
Yes.
Under Daniele De Rossi. They took the lead against Genoa. Artem Dovbyk, their big signing, the Pacici from Girona, got off the mark, although he didn't think he'd got off the mark because it was the longest VAR check in history, probably.
How many minutes are we talking, James?
It felt like 10 minutes.
Really?
Apparently there's a communication breakdown rather than the VAR's looking and looking and looking over and over again at the various different stills. But credit to Genoa, who got a point off Inter at Marassi on the first day of the season, 96-minute equaliser. De Rossi had just been sent off. De Rossi's had to deal with Totti giving about 10 interviews on one day. Each of one got more and more radical, more and more extreme, where he was like, no, the club doesn't call me. What would you like to do, Francesco? Would you like to be sporting director? No, I wouldn't like to be sporting director, but I'd like to be able to give some advice from time to time. And Daniele, he's just going to become a lightning rod for all the problems that the club is having. He'll get the blame, not the owners. Which, if you're trying to talk yourself into being a consultant or doing, you're criticising the owners. So good job there, Francesco. It said he's always talking to Daniele and that sort of stuff. And Totti again going through this midlife paddle crisis, I think. But Roma also sort of in crisis.
Right.
James. Yeah.
Do they have a paddle in the creek they're currently floating around in? We shall see. For now, They lie all the way down in 16th place, only 1 point off the bottom three. Crikey. Thank you so much, James. Next up, I know you want to stick around because we're going to talk some French football. Mwah.
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
Kiss.
Friends abroad, everybody. Over in the Eredivisie, did you see Troy Parrott?
Yeah, 4 goals.
4 goals. No Irish player had even scored a hat-trick in the Eredivisie before now. Not sure how many there've been, but...
Who's a pretty boy?
Well, yeah, that's... you'd have to hope that the commentators, local commentators, went with some variation thereof.
Yeah.
At least on, by the time you get to the 4th goal, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, 4 goals in AZ Alkmaar's 9-1 win over Heerenveen. Heerenveen, you will recall, the side managed by Robin van Persie.
That's
so
right.
a bit of a humbling
And the
there.
worst is, you would think maybe they played with 10 men for an hour, 9 men. No. And they were it was only 2-1 at half time for Alkmaar, 1-1 after 20 minutes. And then they conceded, I think, 3 goals between 48 and 66 minutes to start the second half. And then 2 more goals in concession twice in that second half. 9-1.
9-1. Yeah. It's AZ Alkmaar's biggest ever win in the
Of course.
Eredivisie. You won't be surprised to hear. Although Heerenveen do have a bit of form themselves in conceding lots of goals. It's the second time they've conceded as many as 8 in the Dutch top flight. They lost to... I was just saying, it's Heerenveen do have a bit of form in terms of shipping goals. Because earlier this year, they lost 8-0 to that PSV Eindhoven. Other friends abroad. Jordan Henderson, how's he getting on at Ajax?
Not great, Ajax, but Ajax have only
no
played...
Ajax games. They don't play
they
games
only
anymore.
played 2 games.
Yeah.
When PSV have played
They
5,
haven't-
for example. They could
Yeah.
not play this weekend for security reasons.
And the one before that.
And the one before that.
Because
That's
the
right.
police keep going on strike over... Well, they're having a campaign related to early retirement regulations.
That's right.
Early retirement, Jordan Henderson.
I mean, it's still 1 win and 1 defeat for Ajax. It's not great, and Jordan Henderson is still not Johan Cruyff in disguise, but,
Well,
That was, you mentioned Cruyff. I mean, Cesc Fabregas, after his Como side,
well, they 2-0 up and then 2-2 against
threw
Bologna.
away 2-0 lead, and the DAZN reporter was like sort of asking you about it. He was like, we're all Johan Cruyff after the game, aren't we? I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Right, he's a bit punchy sometimes.
He is very
Yeah.
punchy. So, okay. Anyway,
very nice.
yeah.
Chris Smalling,
Oh, yeah.
he played. He made his debut for his new club, Al Faya. Was he on fire? No.
Definitely not.
Absolutely not. Al Faya, who play in Saudi Arabia, of course. He'd moved there just after the deadline, the transfer deadline from Roma. They were taking on Al Raed, who hadn't won any games in the Saudi Pro League this season, but they've won one now because they... Was it 3-0?
Yeah.
3-0. Smalling contributed the first of the goals, turning in an Al Raed cross into his own goal. And Al Faya scored... Al Raed scored 2 more before the break. And then Smalling got a straight red for denying a goal-scoring opportunity early in the second half. They actually... the final score was 5-0 to the previously winless Al Raed.
It's like a Jonathan Woodgate debut for Real Madrid, right? Something very similar.
Many
On goal,
people say it's the worst, even worse, because I think Real Madrid came back to win that game, did they? Or hung on to win it.
Yeah. And Kareem the Dream scored a hat-trick for Al Ittihad as well this week.
That's nice.
They won 7-1.
What about Jay Lings? How did he get on over in K-League 1?
I wonder, I don't know that.
He scored in FC Seoul's game against, and you'll excuse my mispronunciation, Daejeon Hana Citizen. Okay. A game that FC Seoul lost, actually. It was J.S. Lingard's goal that saw them level the score at 2-2, after which he did his fortnight dance. Mm-hmm. But then a little bit later on, well, actually in the 83rd minute, Daejeon Hana Citizen, fortnight dance. That's his 4th goal in the last 9 games. So he's hit a bit of form after that knee injury he had. Unfortunately for FC Seoul and Jay Lings, Daejeon Hana Citizen then scored again in the 83rd minute, after which Kim Hyung-un, after which the scorer Kim himself did the fortnight dance.
Nice. I love those.
Do you like that?
I love those.
Okay.
Are you going to start learning Korean now?
You should.
Korean, Jesus.
After your J League summer,
Yeah.
I was thinking
J-League,
you're going to
summer of
be you're going to
J-League.
start K-Leaguing.
I love football wherever it's played, James. Wherever it's played, including Ligue 1. Jules, let's talk of some French football. Jules, Paris Saint-Germain, Marseille and Monaco all won ahead of a big week.
Yeah.
Monaco and Paris Saint-Germain are both going to be in the Champions League. Marseille will not. They were 2-0 winners against Nice in the, the Provençal derby?
The Mediterranean derby.
Mediterranean derby, right. Okay. PSG beat...
Big rivalry, as you know.
Right.
Didn't we talk about the Mediterranean derby when David Ginola was on the...
I think we did.
But he thought it was...
Lyon.
He thought it was two teams nowhere near the Mediterranean.
confused.
It's like
Rennes.
Anyway, let's talk about Marseille and that 2-0 victory over Nice. Big win for them, though, against Nice, which is the derby of...
The Mediterranean.
There you go. And yes?
About to sign a new player as well.
Exactly. Adrien Rabiot.
I know. I don't know how I feel, because so anyway, Paris born and bred.
Yeah.
I mean, Arid, Paris born and bred. Adrien Rabiot now, Paris born and bred as well. And if they're happy, I'm happy for them. But I find it a bit strange because there's always those quotes that come back out when a move like that happens. I'm sure you've got the same in Italy. Rabiot back in 2016 was saying there was a possibility before that he joined Marseille on loan. He said, "No, it was just not possible. I could not do that. I could not join Marseille." Here he is. Anyway, he has similar quotes when he said one day, I wouldn't ever play for Marseille. So things like that happen, I guess. But it's a great coup for Marseille to sign him. Even if he wanted to play in the big English clubs and playing in the Champions League, there's none of that in Marseille right now.
One day. L'OM TV, Julien Laurence. Quote surfacing. Ilham.
One of my best friends is head of a channel, or a local channel down there, and now and again they ask me for something, and so I have to say yes because he's a really good friend. So so I'm doing Marseille TV, Marseille local TV, and I'm just I know.
I think it's quite interesting, this move, from a number of perspectives. One is that this is just De Zerbi's ability to convince players to come and play for him. The other is the stance that Rabiot had up until moving, which was there are very few teams that I would consider going to. I want to play Champions League football, and I don't want to play Champions League football just for any team. Like a Villa, a Stuttgart, a Bologna. He would go to a top side like a Man City. He obviously came from Juventus. Clubs of that kind of caliber. So for him to go to Marseille outside of the transfer window, which he can do as a free agent, is surprising. Also, commissions, wages. He was one of the highest paid players at Juventus.
Big effort apparently from Marseille.
Really?
And massive pay cut that he's willing to take. And Véronique, I guess, to take less money, the mum, and him to get less signing on fee, or a smaller signing on fee too. So it's big.
Do you think they can win the league, Jules?
Yeah, I think they can. I think that if you add Rabiot to what was already, I felt, a really good transfer window from Benatia and Longoria, with De Zerbi at the helm and all the technical knowledge that he has, plus the fact that they will only play, we don't even have the League Cup anymore, so it's just the French Cup, which doesn't start before January, and basically only the League now, when PSG will have, I think, 6 games in the next 3 weeks or so.
Right.
So I think that could make a massive difference for them.
Okay. PSG, who, according to their opposition manager this weekend, are looking better now that they got rid of Mbappe.
Yeah.
3-1 victory against Brest.
They were very good. They went behind a penalty that was cheaply given away by Nuno Mendes. But apart from that, I thought they were really outstanding. The third goal, the Fabian Ruiz goal, is wonderful collectively. Ousmane Dembele is the best I've seen for a very long time. And even when Barcola was quite quiet, they combined well. There was no Vitinha, no Zaire Emery, no Marquinhos, and they played really, really good football at times. So it was very, very good. And could even be better, I think, and Luis Enrique is saying that. So let's see how they do against Girona in the Champions League.
How do you feel about their chances there at the Parc des Princes?
Yeah, no, for this game, I fancy them. How far can they go? I think this format can help in a way, maybe, to have this kind of mini league if you want. And then, especially if they finish top 8, to look straight into the last 16.
Why do you feel this will help them?
We saw in the last few seasons on the Goal Show that away form could be very difficult for them. Remember the heavy defeat at Newcastle last season, for example. They struggled in Milan too. They struggled in Dortmund as well. In the sense that in this time, of course, you play away from home. The 4 games at home, 4 games away. But the way the schedule is set, it looks like a more like a better schedule for them. And I think Luis Enrique sees it that way too.
Okay. Monaco also in Champions League action, the Barcelona game, and Lille with the trip to Sporting. Huge.
Yeah. We had a nice Lens-Lyon that finished 0-0 on Sunday, but good.
0-0.
Only I mentioned that because Stonewise is doing better, and it's the Olympico on Sunday, so
Right.
Lyon against Marseille. It's going to be massive. And just finally, Albert Grönbeck, who is the former Bodo Glimt winger. And I'm looking at James Horncastle, who is our Bodo Glimt correspondent, after doing them so much in Europe the last few seasons, was outstanding for Rennes against Montpellier. He signed for Rennes in the summer for 50 million euros. He was one of the bright, that really young, good team that they had at Bodo Glimt, and he's adapted really well to Ligue 1 and was really, really good. He's such a lovely player to watch as well. So good luck to him this season in France.
Next up, we wave goodbye to Jules et Jim and say hello to the Bundesliga and Seb Stafford Bloor. All right, lovely stuff. Seb, so good to have you on. Bundesliga this weekend, lots of goals.
Lots and lots of goals. Most of them in Kiel, Jimbo.
Yes.
In Bayern. Little bit of a mismatch there. So Kiel playing Bayern for the first time in the Bundesliga. This is obviously the first time they've reached the Bundesliga. And yeah, no fairy tale. 4-0 down before half-time, which pretty much describes the tone of that one.
6-1 the final score. You had Harry Kane with his 5th Bundesliga hat-trick. Jamal Musiala looking pretty lively as usual. And Michael Olise with his first goal for the Bavarians.
Yeah, let's start with Musiala because that was kind of the exclamation point on a little bit of a media saga that's been going on. So in his Sky Deutschland column, Didi Hamann criticized Musiala, saying it's kind of a solo entertainer. He's an individual footballer. He's not a team component. Also, very provocatively said that if he had the option, he would quite like to swap Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen for Jamal Musiala. And it is what it is, right? Like, it's not unusual for these media personalities to prod Bayern Munich players because, well, digital media being what it is, right? Bayern Munich fired back. So Christoph Freund was particularly angry and was kind of incredulous about the criticism. Said, we love Jamal. Hey, not incidentally, Musiala currently beginning the process of renewing his contract. So it was very much a moment for Bayern to have his back. Anyway, 15 seconds into the weekend, scored for Bayern, which was a pretty conclusive response. Pretty comprehensive reaction to it. And yeah, it was not really competitive, but it was, I don't know, a lot of fun points from Bayern. I think Harry Kane played very well, looks back to something like full fitness and timely too, because Dinamo Zagreb on the horizon.
Indeed so. Vincent Kompany with 4 straight wins to begin his Bayern career. So very impressive indeed. As you say, Dinamo Zagreb coming up midweek for Bayern in the Champions League. The other top teams winning, apart from RB Leipzig, who got that clash with Real Madrid, just a goalless draw with Union Berlin. Elsewhere, then, all the big teams winning, Seb, apart from RB Leipzig, who got Atletico Madrid this midweek, just a goalless draw for them with Union Berlin.
Super disappointing. 2 halves of this because Union Berlin were very, very good. And Bo Svensson, unable to get to the game. He was ill in bed, unfortunately. But his impact on Union has been pretty dramatic. He's turned them back into what they were in 2022, really stubborn, difficult, tough to beat. RB Leipzig, unfortunately, this is a kind of return to their capricious ways. The criticism that's plagued them under Marco Rose is that you can't trust them. There's no sense of momentum. Good results don't beget further good results. And off the back of that mightily impressive win in Leverkusen, this was very stale, slow, no real cohesion. Lewis Openda might have won it from the penalty spot. Unfortunately missed from the spot, took the penalty himself that he won. There was never any rhythm. There was never any sense that they were going to capitalize on what they managed to do before the international break. And it was, another reason to doubt Rose's progress.
Dortmund, meanwhile, continued their excellent start, beating Heidenheim, who were top of the league, and beating them 4-2.
Yeah, this was really encouraging for Shaheen. When he joined the club as an assistant, he was brought in to renovate their attacking football, to improve their processes, to make them better at progressing the ball up the pitch. And no coincidence then that they do look more dangerous. Particularly interesting to see Sehi Guirassy, who hasn't really played any football for 4 months and looked like he hadn't, Jimbo. There were a few off the shin moments, a few slightly clunky moments with the ball too. But just having him on the pitch and having him at the centre of the attack seems to make Dortmund a lot more dangerous. Donny Malen, who is, I suppose, Dortmund's preeminent rocks or diamonds player, never know quite what you're going to get with him, played very well. Adeyemi, another really strong performance. And both of them, not coincidentally, moving to space vacated by Guirassy during the game. And they really look like an exhilarating attacking prospect. A few concerns around the defence, and Dortmund being Dortmund, this wasn't a complete performance. Heidenheim looked badly off colour and yet was still able to score twice. And, in ways that were not particularly, didn't really flatter the Dortmund defence. Without Nico Schlotterbeck, who was suspended, so that's a little bit of a caveat. But yeah, encouraging signs. This is a slow build process. Let me do that again. This is a slow build process, and Shaheen has been brought in as part of a kind of a whole scale remodeling. Lars Ricken is obviously new CEO for football, very much an eye on the future. Some of the transfer dealings this summer have skewed younger too. So with that in mind and with that as a context, a really interesting first step. I like where Dortmund are going. And this was really a game also that Shaheen had to win. Because imagine losing to Heidenheim at home, forgetting their good form. Imagine what that looks like. It would have been 3 pretty stale performances. So this was a forward step he needed.
Where Dortmund are going this midweek, of course, is Bruges in the Champions League. So that'll be exciting. And Scenic too. After which, because it's a big week for them, they've got Stuttgart, who second, who were the runners-up in last season's Bundesliga, haven't been quite so strong this time around, although, as we mentioned earlier, they did get a sizable win this weekend.
Yeah, and also Gladbach have started the season very well. So going into this game, this was a kind of... Sebastian Hoeneß is not under pressure. Like you say, he finished second last season and has led a dramatic reinvention of the club, really. Like the entire conversation around Stuttgart has changed wholesale since he arrived. However, having lost Waldemar Anton and Sehi Guirassy over the summer, both to Dortmund, they've looked a little bit disjointed and a little bit hungover, really. And yet, into the weekend they went. Amadim Demirovic, who was signed to replace Guirassy, came in from Augsburg over the summer. Excellent couple of goals, played really, really well. A bit of the fluency is back. Dennis Undav played really well. Gladbach are a changed proposition too. They've started the season excellently. Tim Kleindienst and Kevin Stoger kind of altered the way they attack. And they were a dangerous opponent. But Stuttgart went in, really impressively dealt with Gladbach in Borussia Park. And so, to take that form into the Champions League, it's kind of a sense of, right, we've reminded ourselves why we're here. It's a moment to kind of feel a sense of belonging. You're going in off a really strong statement performance where you reestablish yourself as one of the strongest teams in the Bundesliga, and off they go now. Pretty formidable challenge, but still a good place to... It's a pretty formidable challenge they're facing going to Real Madrid, but at least they go there feeling like they belong in the competition. They're not limping into it.
Indeed. And Bayer Leverkusen, who bounced back from their first defeat in over a year, last time out in the Bundesliga, with a 4-1 victory at Hoffenheim.
Yeah, they were sensational. I think everybody imagined that once that record went, there might be consequences. There might be a little bit of a drop in belief. Not at all. Let's pick out Victor Boniface, because I think one of the great what-ifs of last season, which is a strange thing to say about an unbeaten year, is had he remained fit for the entire season, what Leverkusen might have been capable of. He was terrific. 2 goals, 1 assist, 1 goal celebration, which involved him removing his shorts.
Really?
Don't see that every day. Yeah, it's a strange one. Like he came out afterwards to explain it. He spoke to the television. he spoke afterwards to explain it. He said there's a Nigerian influencer that he's friends with who he'd spoken to. And this is a TikTok trend that he promised he'd do if he scored a goal, promised he'd copy. So scored his first goal, ran over to the visiting Leverkusen fans. Didn't whip off his shorts. That's a little bit of a mischaracterization.
Because with the boots, I imagine, there's a bit of struggling.
Yeah, it would have been tricky. I mean, I don't think that would have made for much for, a TikTok trend if you have to, take them.
Did you do it Bucks Fizz style with Velcro down the seams?
No, it was no Velcro. No, it was just a sort of, it was like, say, sort of 3/4 mast, the shorts.
Okay.
But also, there's been, as you can imagine, the Conservative press were none too happy, demanded it.
Do you remember when Nicholas Bentner lowered his shorts to reveal slogans?
Yeah, well, there'd be a loophole. There was no slogan. And unlike Bentner, who was promoting a betting company, Boniface wasn't provoking anybody. And actually, as a couple of journalists have pointed out, there's nothing in the rules about removing your shorts.
Is there not?
Don't remove your shirt. No political slogans. No advertising. No kind of guerrilla advertising a la Bentner.
Right.
But remove your shorts. Maybe that rule changes next couple of weeks. Don't know.
In the meantime,
no sanction for Victor.
Extraordinary. For the second goal, what did he do for that celebration?
No, very normal. Return to his slightly. I don't even know how you explain the celebration. It's a short arms T-Rex style celebration. And there's no reason behind that. He says he just did it one day because it felt fun to him, and he's done it ever since.
If any player would do that, you'd expect Jurassic would be the to adopt a T-Rex.
Nice.
Anyway,
Jurassic.
sorry, back to Boniface. And very nice. Excellent. So Bayern are back, and there's a storming title race developing, although very early days, with Bayern Munich back on top of the pile.
Yeah, and I also think that Borussia Dortmund are in this conversation. I think they look slightly better than anticipated. But yeah, I think you could make the case, certainly at this stage of the season, with Bayern still growing into this new Vincent Kompany era with a small e. Don't think you big E, capital E, the Kompany era yet. But Stuttgart are there, Leipzig are there, Leverkusen are there. Really, it's shaping up to be one of the most compelling Bundesliga seasons in a really long time.
Well, that's a lovely way to finish for now, Seb. Next Monday, Tuesday, we'll catch up again on the latest developments in Germany. For now, from all of us here, it's many thanks, Seb Stafford, Bloor.
Cheers, Jimbo.
And with that, listener, we've come to the end of our rainbow for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Many thanks to Seb and, of course, James and Jules and Paul and Rachel and producer Lucy in the booth. We'll return early next week ahead of the Europa League and Conference League rejigged action. And, of course, rounding up the latest events from around the continent. Do join us for that. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.